Oh,
Sorry, Helen, I realized I should
that's
be
all right.
recording this. Anyway, well,
That's okay.
continue.
That's okay. It'll be caught in the live stream bit anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, so I was actually working I was working so many hours and in so many areas and more and more and more and more and more. And you know, the pattern is familiar. Cape flying in the wind. And
We
until
must save them all.
save them all, that's right. Develop the services. Something must be done. Anyway, I became a bit unwell. And I have told this story before. I developed pneumonia in 2015 and I didn't notice. I was unwell until I was visiting a prison in the southeast. I spent a lot of time in secure settings and I felt so ill I had to lie down on the prison floor. And as I was lying on the prison floor, I thought, something's wrong here. And I didn't really, yeah, I didn't pay attention enough and tried to carry on doing what I was doing. So then I like to think my body acted on my behalf. At this point, my body and brain were acting quite separately. And so it acted on my behalf and it took me out completely. And so I was off sick for quite some time. And then I kept trying to go back. And ultimately, I had to retire with a full range of health issues. So that was a bit of a shock to the system. And you know, there's people think it's wonderful to actually it is wonderful. I'm very happy now. But the shock at retiring then was huge. And I found that health services were struggling to support me. And it was really eye-opening being on the other side. And medication seemed to be the only answer. And I thought there's got to be something else. And I'd practiced yoga on and off since I was 16. And I went back full force. Of course, you know, the traits come through. I couldn't just practice yoga. I had to be a yoga teacher. So it wasn't enough. I needed to know more. So I trained in an awful lot of yoga and meditation and then fell into the world of embodiment and went full force into that, but in a kind of a different kind of managed way, and realized the power of all of these things for me and probably more importantly for people like me. And then 2020 happened. So then I got a real shock because all my friends, my professional friends and family who were working to support the NHS, that's the National Health Service in the UK, and I wasn't doing it because I was no longer working as a doctor. And, you know, one of the things that is behind, I think, working excessively and stress and burnout is that need to provide and to care for, and certainly within the traits myself. So I found that very difficult. So I did what I could, and I was invited to join, as a psychiatrist, I was invited to join a private Facebook group for psychiatrists managing across the UK and struggling because of lots of reasons, but because of COVID. And so I brought yoga for them. I brought them yoga. And I had a ridiculous number of yoga sessions for 6 months, but a regular one was for them. It was all for a group of doctors. And I had a separate group for other staff as well. And then, of course, I got to the end of that 6 months, and as things were tailing off, then I kind of went like that again because I was doing too much. But I realized two things. One was the same group of doctors that I was in needed to do something before they hit the illness wall. And two, the people like me who'd hit the illness wall needed something else other than what the NHS was providing or what I'd experienced. So I went forward to produce something else. So that's the backstory, background.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's a couple of things you said there that I think probably many people can relate to, is that drive forward, so much so that you don't recognize the signals from your body
Yeah.
until you are lying on the floor, like in your case,
Yes.
of a prison. But and then the body acted on itself, which is so common, right? We see
Yeah.
like this, oh, I'm not feeling good, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, but I can push through, and I can push through, I can push through. And then whether it's grace or whatever you want to call it, the body eventually is like, listen, ladies, gentlemen, I have carried you through as far as I can. We are now at an impasse. And that really is so common. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us just, and particularly when you look at the caring profession, so medical
Yeah.
doctors and healthcare professionals, and especially during these last few years where there's just been no downtime because there
Yeah.
hasn't been the opportunity. And so there's this real push through. But the signals are often there a lot sooner than we think.
Oh, they are. And you know, doctors as a group, we have always been notorious of do as I say, not as I do. You know, and we laugh about it and we joke about it, but it's not actually very funny because we have to, you know, we all have to listen. We all have to.
Yeah, yeah. And so what have you seen? So through your own journey and through working with, you've got these two kind of groups. One is for doctors, and you're kind of helping them through in a different way, and then your regular kind of what you call real people group of people who are suffering from burnout. What are the things, like what are the big themes that you tend to see? Are they the same in the two groups, or are they kind of different depending on?
It's very interesting, actually. So the one group is people with health challenges,
Mhm.
dominated by pain and fatigue, but we all have a similar kind of overlapping personality and backstory around that.
Mhm.
There are not everybody's individual and everybody has their own journey, but there are an awful lot of themes that come through. And so I ran that first, actually, and then it ran over 3 months the first time I did it. It's called Befriending Me, to befriend our own bodies again. And then the second time I ran it over 6 months because I realized I tried to fit too much in. The
Yep.
second time I ran Befriending Me in parallel with the doctors program, the program for doctors, because this group were all have illness, all of them. Some are still working, many aren't. All have pain and fatigue. Most have autoimmune conditions, inflammatory arthritis, Ehlers-Danlos, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. We can add long COVID in there. That's a discussion for another time. You know, so there's that great big mix. And then the doctors group and the themes underlying are identical. One of the advantages, or one of the things that's really helped me in developing what I'm doing and helping with what I'm doing, is the psychiatry actually is highly relevant, not just because of mental health, but also because of neuroscience, which underpins a lot of the work that I was doing previously as well. Because understanding the neurology and the neuroscience theories, some of this is theory,
Mhm.
hands up, but understanding that allows me and others to then see the framework, that the parallels between these two groups. In fact, recently I was asked to deliver some self-care work for a group of healthcare professionals that are split across the country, and I'm just doing one thing a month for 6 months, and I'm using the exact same framework because it's the same stuff. Everybody is going through this same route of overwhelm and sympathetic overdrive and not enough rest and digest. And the main difference between the medical group and the health group is that the health group were further along the pathway. But running it, there are also differences in the way they approach the courses. The health group we laugh about this, actually. We laugh a lot. In both groups, they know I say this because it's true. The chronic health group, the Befriending Me group, are like, oh, that meditation. Oh, I'm going to listen to that again. Or, oh, I'm glad it was a long one. Or, oh, I wish it was even longer. Or the doctors are, no, 5 minutes is enough. I haven't got time to listen to a
Uh-huh.
relaxation that's long. No, I haven't got time. And it's really interesting that the priority, the sense that time has to be spent working and time cannot be prioritized for self-care is there,
Mhm.
even in the people awake to the idea that they're facing stress and burnout. So it's,
Yeah, that the need to care for others over oneself, I think,
yeah,
runs pretty deep
yeah,
in that group,
yeah.
particularly, but also for anybody who's get caregiving in any capacity. So what would you say is something like what is something that you've so in both groups and often there is this sense of like maybe in the doctors it's about caring and I don't have time because I have a lot of patients to see, and maybe in the other group it's um time is money for those that are still working, right? Like this is often a theme that comes up, at least in the work that we do too, is this sense of there's too much to do. So I self-care is the thing that falls. I'll save it for my 2 weeks vacation. So how do
Yeah.
you work around that in your groups, or what's the kind of what is something that you find useful as either a metaphor or a practice around self-care for people? How do you navigate that terrain?
Well, first I'd say the working doctors really struggle with that. The Befriending Me group, which I include myself in, it's more that they haven't got the energy. They've gone beyond the
Mhm.
time. It's the energy they haven't got.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we've been doing is starting to look from the beginning, pull it all back. And self-compassion comes first. It comes under everything,
Mhm.
absolutely everything. Because I haven't got time, or I haven't got the energy, or I should be doing this is all about self-criticism. It's all about attacking self, about self not being good enough and not delivering enough. And the reason I know that that's underlying for most of them is because I was in both groups, and I see it, and we call it out and we talk about it. And so carving out tiny moments is a good start, especially for the working healthcare
Mhm.
professional group. For the people who have severe health challenges, it's about doing a good enough practice. It's just good enough. Doesn't matter if it's 1 minute of a hug. Let it be good enough. That's good. That's better than no hug. That's better than no self-love. We have a lot of yoga, meditation, embodiment exploration, but we call it lazy yoga. So one of the yoga practices that comes up in each section is restorative yoga, and it's basically lolling about over cushions and bolsters and knowing that you're doing a practice, knowing that you are practicing, so you can count this as something effective in your day that you have done. Because if you are, whether you're working or not, whichever group you're in, if you're exhausted and stressed, the need to have achieved something can be enormous. And you can leave a lazy yoga practice knowing you have achieved something, even if you did that practice from bed. We have people join from bed from chair, from some people lie on the mat and never get up. Some people never get to the mat, But lazy yoga in whatever form you need is a good start, even if it's for 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's we talk about sacred laziness as
Yeah,
one of the steps in terms of recovery, because there's so much in our society around productivity, right? So whether you're ill or whether you're a caregiver, and how that ties into our self-worth. And so if
Yeah.
you're not doing things, what value are you? Which is, so I love that idea of like the lazy yoga, and you're still doing something, still kind of checking the box, but
Yeah.
it's in a way that's like resourcing for
Yes.
the people, and a way to
Yeah.
kind of step into that idea that this is important and this is healing and that it matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And to start even with that 1 or 2 minutes, I think is so valuable too, right?
Anything. And the group of people with health challenges, it's always you come how you are. There are no
Mhm.
requirements. You can be in bed. We were talking just before we started. I've been doing some groove training, which is facilitated dance, which we've brought into the program alongside, because no, not everybody, most people love movement to music. But if you are exhausted, then dance can be almost impossible.
Mhm.
However, we have been using groove in an accessible way. So facilitated dance in an accessible way. It might just be your fingers. It might just be your hips. It might just be your eyebrows. But to be able to feel that through the body, feel that as a body, and know that you're dancing in a group is a huge thing. Huge.
Yes. Yeah, and the community aspect, which we haven't
Oh
really
yeah.
gotten into, but knowing that there's other people who kind of share in the same process. Maybe their story, their backstory is different, but everybody's kind of landing in the same place.
Yeah.
So just knowing that you're not alone in it, I think is of huge value too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I think that's enormous value, whether you're with me or with you. If you have stress, knowing that you're not the only person in the world that has stress. If you're facing burnout, knowing you're not the only person. If you have this collection of health issues and you experience pain and fatigue on a daily basis, knowing that somebody understands is huge. It's
Yes.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how do people find you, Helen? So, you are the Yoga Rogue. You have a Facebook group, and you're about to start a next program. Do you want to
I
chat
am.
about that
I
a bit?
am. So you can find me at social media at Yoga Rogue UK. That will take you on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook to me. We have a Yoga Rogue community Facebook group. And there's a website, yogarogue.co.uk. It redirects to that. And so Befriending Me, which is the program for people with, we say it's for people with health challenges dominated by pain and fatigue, but also people with stress and overwhelm. So because it's the same, we're doing the same thing. And that begins in September. So it's quite soon. It's really spaced out and it runs till April. And it's got 6 main sections. But alongside that, and I mentioned this to you before we began, I'm doing a facilitator training for yoga teachers, and I'm taking a small number of yoga teachers on this same journey so that they can either adapt their classes specifically for a group of people with stress, burnout, pain and fatigue, or they can deliver their own version of the program. And we've also had some interest from some yoga teachers who have either stress and burnout themselves or pain and fatigue or both, because they all run hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there's still a couple of places left for yoga teachers, and it's approved by Yoga Alliance International, and it's 40
Yay.
hours CPD. Absolutely. Yay.
Okay. I'll put the links in the chat once we're done
Thank you.
for the Yoga Rogue. Is it the same if there's yoga teachers out there who want to do your training? Is it the same way?
Yeah, they
They
can
can find
find
you
me
on
through.
the Okay.
Yeah, they can find me through that. And you can message me through any of the platforms.
And Helen is very good at responding in a timely manner, I will say.
Thank you.
I don't have to hunt you down too hard to get the response. Well, thank you. I would love to talk to you for hours, but in recognition of people watching and also for your own, I know you were doing your groove training this weekend and you were probably pretty tired. Then I will say thank you for being our beautiful guest with your interesting history. And so for those of you watching, I will put Helen's social media handles in the chat. And I will also mention to stay tuned this week. We're going to be giving you some information on a free masterclass we're running next week, Julia and I. So stay tuned for that information. And until next time, maybe we'll have Helen back and we can talk about the neuroscience of all stuff.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It was lovely to see you, Helen.
You too.